Hey, welcome back to Tips for Tuesday. This week we're going to cover rowing. All right, so this is a two-part series. This week we're going to cover rowing technique, and then next week we're going to go over stroke rate, damper setting, drag factor, and how to dial in the monitor on the rower. All right, but for today's purposes, what we're going over is how to the do's and don'ts, the ins and outs of how to row. There's definitely wrong ways and right ways to do things. All right, so this week we have Coach Jordan with us again, and she's going to show us how to do rowing on the rower. And the first thing that we want to look at is when you sit down and buckle in your feet. So what is the foot position on the rower? Okay, when you're here, you want the straps to be placed over the shoelaces. All right, so mid-foot. Right, if you place them too far up on your toes, your shin muscles, your anterior tibialis, that's going to get real tired real fast. The other thing is if the strap is too high up on the ankle, you're probably going to be susceptible to some cramping in the legs and the foot. All right, so make sure you're about mid-foot over the shoelaces. There's numbers that are on the foot pedals here. Find what number fits you best and then make sure you use that every time you buckle in on the rower. Okay, the next thing that you want to look at is making sure that the oar is in the cradle, monitor is on, and ready to go. All right, we're not going to look too much into this today. What we're looking for is technique. So while Jordan is doing some rowing for us, nice and easy pace rowing, we're going to go over what it looks like and what it should look like, and then we'll go over some common flaws that we see with the rowing technique. All right, so Jordan, if you will, go ahead and start rowing for us. Okay, while she's rowing, we want to talk about oar placement. All right, so the oar, as she pulls it in, it wants to be lower rib cage. So the bottom of the rib cage below the chest, all right, but not too low into the hips. The other thing is you don't want to take the oar and slam it into the belly. All right, nice easy pull. There should be a soft touch and then a release and return. All right, when you return the oar back to the pull position, you want to stay within about 1 inch, all right, so that the chain doesn't travel up and down throughout this entire piece right here. All right, that's going to be an inefficient pull. All right, for the chain or the oar to catch that flywheel appropriately, we want to make sure it stays consistently in that 1.5 inch area. Outside of that, right, we'll see a lot of inefficient rowing. So we'll see the chain bouncing, or we'll see people returning the oar low and then pulling high, right, kind of sweeping that chain. You want to stay in a nice straight line in and out. Okay, all right. Now, what does the body look like as she rows? All right, first and foremost, real nice straight back. All right, so we don't want to see any rounding of the back. Okay, another thing as she comes in, her hips or the seat, they don't need to come all the way into the heels. All right, so that's one of our flaws, or our first flaw that we're going to cover is what's called bottoming out. So if she brings that chair and just lets it kind of slide in until it hits her heels, right, that's bottoming out. What happens there is she becomes off tension. All right, so now her hip muscles are now relaxed, off tension. That's something that we need to avoid. You want to be on tension, tense and tight, so that when you come out of that pull, right, you got a nice hard pull. Okay, the other flaw that we'll see is overextension. So as she pulls, we'll see some people pull that oar up over into the chest, or we'll see some craziness where some people even take it up overhead and do some sort of crazy sweeping motion. Right? That's a very inefficient pull right there. There is no benefit to that. Okay? There's no benefit to that whatsoever. You actually lose power on that stroke. All you're doing here is smoking your arm and shoulder muscles. All right? So that won't last over time at all. The theory behind that is that people think that the longer the pull, the more power output that you're going to have. And quite honestly, what happens is after you lose this position here from that overextension there, that's just overkill. All right, that has nothing to do with excessive power output at all. Okay, all you're doing is wasting and expending energy. All right, the third flaw we'll see is overreaching. So she'll come in too far, right, and reach with that oar to the point where we'll see too much forward lean and bending in the torso and even some rounding in the back. Okay, so we got to avoid that, right? Paramount rule, straight back. Okay, all right, go ahead and let's rack that up for a second. Okay. What we like to teach is that rowing is very similar and not unlike the deadlift. All right, so all you're doing in a row is deadlifting. All right, so the deal is you want your hips and shoulders to move at the same time, in and out. Same thing on the deadlift. When you pull a bar from the ground, as you rise up, your hips and shoulders should rise at the same time. And when you return that bar to the ground, the bar should lower with the hips and shoulders moving at the same time. So the flaw we'll see on deadlift and even on rowing is this, right? The bar is here, you're getting ready for that pull, and we'll see the knees extend and the hips fly up in the air, but the bar and the shoulders have not moved. And then the rest of the pull looks like this, right? So that's all back. Okay, and the same thing going down, we'll just see this, and then they'll do this. Okay, everything should move at the same time. So when I pull that bar or oar in the rower, right, my hips and shoulders move at the same time on the way up, and then on the way down, same thing. Okay, and you maintain that nice straight back. Okay, so we'll see on the rower, the hips kick out. And Jordan's going to show what that looks like here when the hips kick out. And the same thing as bottoming out, meaning that you go off tension in the hips and that your entire pull now is arms and back. And you want to develop the power from the legs. Okay, so what are we talking about? This right here, the hips kick out, right? But the oar basically hasn't moved, all right? So all you're doing is nothing happening with the legs. There's no power, no tension going through the legs. Now your pull is all back and arms. All right, so let's go back to regular rowing. Okay, hips and shoulders, moving at the same time out, return at the same time. Okay, the other thing we want to talk about here is your elbows do not bend until your knees extend. All right, so this goes back to Olympic lifting. We coach that when the elbows bend, the power ends. Same thing on the rower. If you bend your elbows too soon, let's just kind of show what that would look like. All right, bend your elbows. Okay, bend your elbows. Okay, so she's bending her elbows before her legs have developed any power or strength through that. So you want to develop this first. So when you come out of the box, as we call it, all right, it's all leg explosiveness, and then the arms and the oar just follow through with the elbow bend. Okay, and then just if you can bring that camera to the back position. Where are the elbows in position in relation to the body? Just like on a push-up, they should be in and tight, and then they pull behind the torso, all right? So your elbows are not flying out here like this, all right? So they should be in nice and tight. And you can see she maintains a straight back when she comes in and on the pull. Okay, Jordan, thank you. All right, so that is our rowing technique in regards to how the body should look when you're doing the exercise. Next week, we're going to go over and kind of geek you guys out on what do the numbers mean here, what do the metrics mean. You want to dial this in, all right? You don't want to row blind, so to speak. You want to know what these numbers mean, all right? They can help or hinder you, so you want to know what's going on here with the monitor. And then also we're going to talk about what do these numbers 1 through 10 on the damper mean, and how should you adjust them for your personal situation. Okay, so again, till next week, Tips for Tuesday, rowing part 2.